Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public. Welcome to this evening's North Area Planning Committee. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel, and I welcome viewers joining us online. I'll just run through some housekeeping rules. Can I request that mobile phones are either set to silence or switched off during the course of the meeting? I'll run through the protocol for member and public participation and the rules of debate. Please note that the Chair's ruling during the debate will be final. If you've registered to speak, I will introduce you by name and invite you to address the meeting at the appropriate time. The Development Management Officer will introduce the item relating to the planning application and summarise the main points. When this has been completed, I will then invite members of the public who have registered to speak on the item to address the meeting. Members of the committee will then be given the opportunity to ask for clarification from speakers, and the item will then be moved and seconded and debated before a vote is taken. So the first item on the agenda this evening is apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Riley, Councillor Prentice and Councillor Best, with Councillor Addison acting as a substitute tonight.
Thank you. And I understand Councillor Riley may be attending later if he can make it. Thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations to make? And I confirm that they are coming to the meeting with an open mind and have not predetermined any applications. Councillor Shatlock.
Thank you, Chair. Just for item 4.3, Lilford Park, Lilford Hall, I did meet up with some of the residents to listen to their concerns, but I'm in no way predetermined on it.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of October. Are members happy for me to sign the minutes of the last meeting as a true record?
Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Addison.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pengelly, who was at the meeting, spoke at the meeting, has asked me to point out that paragraph 4.1 and 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph where he spoke, it says, as ward councillor for the proposed development, stating that the proposed development was in keeping with the local street scene. He did not.
Yeah, I've put
so if we can change that for him, please.
I'll take that out. I've actually put a question mark by that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have approver and a seconder for the minutes. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. So that takes us on to agenda item 4, which are the planning applications for this evening. The first item on the agenda, 4.1, is NK/2023/0701, 9 Montague Street, Kettering. Louisa Johnson, you're taking this, aren't you? Thank you. And if you'd like to give an update.
Thank you, Chair. There is an update for this application. We did receive one additional comment from a councillor at Kettering Town Council, which has been summarised in the update. So this site is 9 Montague Street in Kettering, which comprises of a ground floor containing 5 retail units and a first floor occupied by the Qtopia Snooker Lounge. It's for an addition of 3 additional floors together with a change of use of the first floor from the snooker club to provide 24 apartments with PV solar panels to the roof. The proposal has been presented to committee due to neighbour objections and comments from Kettering Town Council raising concerns around the loss of the Qtopia Snooker Hall, a leisure use widely used by the community, the location being inappropriate for residential flats due to the lack of infrastructure in this part of the town and its detrimental impact to the character of the area. The proposal would be detrimental to the amenity of the high street and neighbouring properties by way of overshadowing and overlooking, lack of parking, causing congestion and impact on access for emergency services, and noise and disturbance from construction and operation. The loss of the snooker hall has been considered at section 7.1 of the main report. The impact of the development on the character of the surrounding area has been addressed at 7.2 and impact on amenity at section 7.3. In conclusion, officers are recommending approval subject to conditions and the section 106 agreement being signed as set out in the report.
So we have 4 public speakers on this application and each... Sorry. We have 4 speakers on this application and each will have 3 minutes to speak. So the first speaker is Paul Martin. Thank you. If you'd like to take a seat. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, so I am the owner of the business that is Qtopia in 9 Montague Street on the first floor. My primary objection, obviously, is the demolition of the club, which is indeed a pub and drinking establishment, and that's against central government policy, as far as I know. Paragraph 117 on the government website. But many of the 133 objections refer to the loss of it. I can prove that it's a wet-led business. More than 50% of the income comes from selling alcohol rather than snooker, pool or American pool. So that's the assertion of the 1,300 signatures on the petition as well that are against it. It's been there for 37 years doing the same thing. So, yeah. And there's some, what I would say are probably material errors in the notes. The 7.1.7 in the planning officer's report, the premises is actually 100% occupied by commercial tenants. There's no underutilisation, so I don't think it fits the policy to put flats above shops where it's underutilised. There's a statement that says from the agent that the snooker club will be relocated. Well, that's news to me, I'm afraid. At the moment, the snooker club is just being made homeless. We've been offered the other building, but it's just not suitable for occupation, the building around the corner that's Argos. There are, in fact, windows. 7.3.3 says there are no windows on Montague House, but there are. 7 of them, I think, that face the site directly from very close. Can't be seen from the road, but they are there. And there's another statement at 7.3.4 that says the Eden Centre is a single-storey commercial building, but actually the Eden Centre is formerly Kettering Central Hall. It's 3 storeys next door. It's got a single-storey vestibule at the front on Montague Street, but and actually once hosted the World Snooker Championships, would you believe? But there's a further statement as well in the application, 7.1.14, saying that the lease has ended and the club needs to move anyway. This is not really the nature of a commercial lease protected under the Landlord and Tenant Act 1954. The lease is continuous as long as the end of the lease is the first point where it can be ceased by both parties agreeing that it can be ceased. Otherwise, it needs an act of a court to end the lease. And that probably covers it. Yeah, the flats, everyone's doing their job really. It's the applicant is trying to protect his business, I'm trying to protect mine. Obviously the people of Kettering seem to like my business and they want it to remain. So.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions of clarification from the speaker? Councillor Dalziel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a quick point of clarification. I don't know if you covered it, but when is your lease up to?
We're on 3-month extensions at the moment. It was from 2014 to January 2024. So
Okay.
we're now having to trade in 3-month segments. I can't book World Snooker or British Snooker events to be hosted there and things anymore. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. The next speaker is Darren Carter. Thank you. Again, when you're ready, you have 3 minutes. Would you mind putting your speaker?
That's it, sorry. For context, I am the joint owner of Montague House, which is to the left of Qtopia building. We converted that building from offices back in 2018 into 17 flats. A couple of points I'd like to make, just for clarification, is I noticed on some of the earlier drawings that there were some external screens and there are also some balconies. The residents in my building that are facing onto Montague Street suffer quite a lot from overheating, mainly due to the obviously the direction of those apartments and also due to the glaring sun that comes through. So obviously those sun protection screens would have avoided similar concerns if this development goes ahead. And also the balconies, obviously being in a city centre or town centre, people love outside space. So I just wondered whether the committee could kind of enlighten me as to why those two elements are no longer on the designs. Please.
Thank you. Have you finished your... Yeah, thank you. Do members have any questions of clarification? Don't think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman. Councillor Mark Rowley from Kettering Town Council. Again, when you're ready, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. This is a bit weird. Just to clarify, I'm speaking on behalf of the Kettering Town Council tonight. So the main objection from the Town Council is the loss of an important leisure facility used by residents for nearly 40 years, as already explained. It's not a vacant, as the report says, which is against Policy 5 for diversity of leisure activities. The report also considers the bar beer sales to be subservient to the pool and snooker side of things, when in fact, as we've already heard, it accounts for more than 50% of the revenue. So should be under Policy 6, should have had a marketing for 12 months before any change of use comes into effect. The building itself that's being proposed is going to be very imposing on the street scene, with a total lack of resident amenities on site. And as already been explained, there's some windows in Montague House that, with a 3-storey building next to it, is going to have a really detrimental impact on the light going into those windows. The report also says there's no biodiversity net gain proposal required because of the data submission, but as councillors will know, the old applications do come through, so it's disappointing that there's no report in this instance. There's a concern over how the construction traffic is going to be managed on this site. Montague Street is single lane at the best of times because of the parking at the side. So any deliveries, especially steel work, is going to block that road, which is a major arterial road out of Kettering, and it's going to cause a lot of disruption in that area, and disruption for the shops below. Presumably they'll have to stop trading while the building's going on, which is going to have a severe impact on some of those businesses of where they can relocate. Viewing the application against the policies, you would expect, as most applications, some grey areas, but there seems to be quite a few in this report. There's no affordable housing provision, should be 30%. There's no on-site parking at all. The nearest car park has planning permission for 15 flats to be built on it. And the next nearest one is always busy, day or night. So it's going to be, as highways have said, these parking spaces are only suitable for visitors, they're not suitable for residents. It's going to be very hard for a visitor to find a parking space close by this development to actually visit the residents there. Policy 6 of the KTC AAP, the recommendation is 36 cycle bays, there's only 20. The recommendation is that mega route bus passes are provided to the residents on the first residents in there. the Town Council would like to see make sure that that's covered either in a enforceable condition or S106 for all the occupants, not just one per household. It's also noted that ICB and NHS have stated there's no additional provision in this area for medical care, so they've asked for S106, but again, that's going to be difficult for any of the local doctors, dentists to actually bring facilities online with the limited amount of funds this is going to provide. There's insufficient bin storage. The recommendation from NNC was 11 large bins for general waste. There's only 5 provided on the plans. There's no air quality assessment impact, and increasing the size of that building to 3 stories above what it is now is going to make a tunnel effect in Montague Street, much the same as we had in Newland Street. And those that remember from Kettering, Newland Street had to be no cars allowed down Newland Street because the air pollution got so bad there. And admittedly, most of that was buses, but a lot of the Montague Road traffic is at standstill because of the traffic lights at the top. So there's a severe worry that environmental air quality will be impacted by this development. Environmental noise assessments missing, as has already been stated. There's a worry that Montague House will be affected by that, and there's no surface drainage defined for this development. So with all those, the Town Council hope that councillors...
Councillor Rowley, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you
I've
very
got
much.
2 more words to say. Reject this.
Quick.
Okay.
Thank you. Before you go, are there any questions of clarification? Thank you. I will just add that 7.10.3, the contributions proposed are mentioned in that paragraph for section 106. Thank you. Thank you. And finally, we have Mark Kelly, the agent, on behalf of the applicant. Again, thank you. When you're ready, if you've got 3 minutes.
Excuse me. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, members. There's quite a number of points there raised with our last speaker there. I've only got 3 minutes, so I can't go into that much detail and discuss every one of those. But every one of those items has already been covered by our reports and documentation that we've already issued to planning. We've worked solidly with the planning department for about 18 months now. We were initially appointed to look at options on this site because the lease was coming to an end. The original lease, I think it was a 10-year lease. I'm sure Mr. Martin will correct me if I'm wrong. He took it over with 4 years to go, and that ran out in January. It's been a rolling lease since then. My clients, the owners, have put forward proposals, you just heard, for another building around the corner on Newland Street as a replacement for this one. They've offered him a significant rent-free period to enable him to work up that building. We walked around the building with Mr. Martin himself back in 6 months ago now, and it seemed to be reasonable in our opinion then. Mr. Martin has since changed his mind, but we talked about taking walls down, and we even drew out the building with the little snooker tables on there so we could rearrange those himself. Again, I don't have the time to go through everything in detail. Only 3 minutes is not long. I believe, I know for a fact that everything that we have, everything that's been raised with everybody, the fire rescue, police, everybody has been dealt with satisfactorily, if not beyond their requirements in our reports. So really, there's not a lot else I can say. So my main reason for being here today is that if anything is raised, for instance, if you want to talk about affordable housing, I'm here, just ask me. Simple as that. That's it really for me. Thank you very much. I'm here if you need anything clarified.
Thank you very much. And do members have any questions for clarification? So first, Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Chair. You say that parking has been the agreement has come for the parking situation, that you feel it's
the parking?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've covered that,
how has
again, in
that,
our report by Highways. There is no parking on site. Parking that we do require is for deliveries and visitors, and there's sufficient spaces around the area in public car parks around there. It is the nature of our sustainable design. Montague House next door, which was one of our first major projects, doesn't have car parking either, nor do any of our other projects in Kettering, bar the very first one we did. And that just happened to have car parking on site, and so we've retained it. It's not required for the people who will take those apartments.
I've lived in Kettering for 35 years and I've missed all that. Gosh, it's amazing.
Pardon, sir? I missed that, sorry?
I say I've lived in Kettering for 35 years and I've missed all those car parking spaces that you're referring to. It just doesn't seem to...
Well,
yeah,
there's Newlands. There's Newland Street car park. Again, they are all in the report if you want more detail. And then there's one behind the other side of Montague Street there, which is always, I wouldn't say empty, always quarter full.
Thank you. These should be questions of clarification. And can I refer members to 7.4.5, which under the proposal conforms to Policy 8 of the North Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy in accordance with the Local Highways Authority standards. Are there any further questions of clarification from the Speaker? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the purposes of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution Rules 19.2 and 19.21, I will move the recommendation stated on page 18 and 43 of your agenda papers that A. Planning permission be granted subject to conditions listed in paragraph 11 of the report and subject to completion of an acceptable Section 106 agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations, and B. Should an acceptable Section 106 agreement securing appropriate planning obligations not be completed by the 25th of January 2025 or any further extension of time agreed in writing between the applicant and the local planning authority, that it be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy to refuse planning permission. Do I have a seconder? Councillor, yeah, thank you. I've got a seconder. So I'll open this application up for debate. We did hear from a number of speakers regarding waste and Section 106 agreement, regarding affordable housing and health. Affordable housing is dealt with in the report under Section 7.9.2. And if I refer members to 7.10.3, contributions proposed are towards improving the provision of affordable housing, education contributions, library facilities and travel cards, and are considered to be necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. Also, regarding the waste, that is dealt with under 7.5.1, that the proposed bins are considered adequate. So I'll open that up for members to... Councillor Addison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid I'm not familiar with this area as some of my Kettering colleagues are. I can't make a decision on the very sparse plans that we've got in front of us. Is there any photographs of the street scene or anything?
Thank you, Chair. This is a view with the white building in the middle is the site, and this is a view looking down Montague Street. This is a view looking the other way. And these are views of the rear of the site.
Does that help?
Building
The
we're
white
looking-
building.
Okay.
Did you want to come in? Councillor Deering?
Yes, sorry, can we have a look at the architect's plans for this as well, please? I know they're on there, but we've nothing at all in this paperwork.
Do you want to go through the slides for members? That might be helpful.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the site and location plan showing the existing site and an existing ground floor and existing first floor. This is the front elevation from Montague Street. The top one is the front elevation as it is now. We then have a proposed ground floor which shows the bin stores, and then the proposed first floor, second floor, third floor and the roof space. And the top is the proposed elevation for Montague Street. And then we have the side elevations. And then we have a streetscape context showing the existing and proposed elevations for Montague Street.
Whilst we're staying on there, can I just ask, because it's difficult to see it all, that roof line, does that roof line marry up with the roof line of the building on the left as I look at it from here?
It is a little faint, apologies, but it is slightly lower than the building next door. So it's not quite as high.
So if I might, Chair, we're talking 3 additional stories, aren't we?
It brings it in just lower than the... So the 3 stories is just lower than the building height of the effectively the dental practice. I guess upstairs isn't a dental practice, but that building. Councillor Watts?
Thank you. I was hoping to come here tonight and hear something that made me feel a bit better about this application. I'm afraid I have not. I go up this road every day, 2 or 3 times a day sometimes. It's mayhem now. I know that the building will be finite, and once it's completed, the building work, which is going to cause so much chaos and trouble for people of Kettering and those who dare visit. So that is finite. I do accept that, but I think it's asking an awful lot from the site. The parking situation is terrible. And now there's 15 more flats going to be built around the corner. We have no places in schools. We have no places at the hospital. We can't get a doctor's appointment. And there's, despite that dental practice right there, you can't see a dentist in Kettering already. And these and all of the other applications that are coming to infill our town centre are just going to make life very, very difficult for us. And I think this is one quite apart from the poor guy who's going to lose his business, whether or not he moves around the corner. It just seems very unfair, and it seems to be asking an awful lot of the site, and I'm afraid I won't be supporting it.
Sorry, Jasper.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the lease, I do want, I'm advising the members to disregard that. That's a financial matter, an arrangement between the landlord and the tenant. This is a planning application. It's about the use and the redevelopment of this site. In terms of just picking up the points that have been made, in terms of housing and redevelopment of, particularly in town centres, we are looking at regeneration of a town centre. By introducing more people that live in the town centre, it helps to regenerate the shops. For example, they're using the services, they're using the local shops, so you get more footfall, and obviously the visitors and so on. In terms of parking, they would use, these are already covered in the highway comments. What they say is, in terms of national policy, town centres are the most sustainable locations in terms of they've got public transport, they've got other available car parking in the area. In terms of the development of the flats, there is a desperate need in the NNC area for what we call fledgling or new nesters, young people who are looking for accommodation where we've got demand outstrips supply. So we've got lots of demand for houses in multiple occupation because, you know, we've got the jobs, we're economically active. So it meets that criteria. As I said, it's going to provide much needed small flats that are needed by the new fledglings. Parking is sustainable. And also, in terms of planning policy, it meets the government's national planning policy, and it also meets the local planning policies. Finally, there's a comment made about noise from residents, etc. Don't forget the snooker club, in terms of pubs, etc. They already generate noise, particularly when people leave and enter, and during weekends and so on. So, in terms of comparable noise, you're not going to have, you know, sort of events and etc. There'll be human voices, people coming and going, than that. So, therefore, in terms of summing up, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to add that in the conditions that prior to any commencement of development, a demolition and construction management plan shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. So a number of concerns are addressed in the conditions. Yep. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got concerns about the parking. We already got a development with the George at the moment, if I think I'm right. It needs to be done in flats. I gather there's hardly any parking for them. We'll be fighting, people will be fighting over parking at this rate. We have got lots and lots of flats. I know you got to bring people into the town, but I feel this is not right.
I just come back again on Highways Matter. Policy 6 of Kettering Town Council Area Action Plan says low or zero parking residential developments may be acceptable on sites in close proximity to services, amenity and public transport where it can be demonstrated that sustainable travel alternatives are accessible. And also the local highway authority doesn't have an issue. That's been dealt with under 7.4.5. Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Chair. Section 106, where are we with the wording and so forth with the Section 106? It says in the report that an acceptable Section 106 has to be in place by the 25th of January next year. That's 3 months away, and we still don't know what's in the Section 106.
Are you asking the planning officer? Yeah. Do you mind? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. We do know what is in Section 106. We do have affordable housing contributions, which does meet the 30% requirement. We also have education and a contribution for a bus pass. There is no NHS contribution, as the NHS ICB board have advised us that they're not currently seeking contributions for schemes of less than 100 dwellings. Therefore, that is not included in Section 106. My understanding is that it is fairly well advanced in terms of the drafting, and I have had nothing come back from the applicant to state that they are not willing to sign the Section 106 at this time. I've had nothing back from them to say that they aren't willing to sign it. Okay. So I've had no concerns at this stage that they wouldn't agree to the contributions.
Okay, right, thank you.
The planning permission wouldn't be issued without the Section 106. So, but in terms of timing, I've dealt with the 106 in 24 hours. So it's just a matter of getting everyone together. Thank you.
Just come back on that. It would be good if we could have that information, you know, when the reports are brought to the committee, because, you know, we don't know, unless I asked, we didn't know what was actually in the Section 106. So I think in the future we should have the details for that brought to committee.
I think that the Section 106 is covered in the report under affordable housing, was what's been asked for, and 7.10.3 all on page 42. And sorry, page 42 again, 7.10, the planning obligations are dealt with there. Councillor Deering.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to raise a point on this, because in general, I don't object to getting town centres regenerated. I think it's really important. I don't think parking can be, in my opinion, the only issue. However, the affordable, for us as an authority, the Section 106 is absolutely critical that we squeeze as much juice out of that lemon as we can, basically. And I'm looking at this and thinking, well, there appears to be an ask for affordable housing, which should be 30%. I don't know whether that's going to be what's agreed, but that's imperative from our point of view. However...
Can I just stop you there? That has been... We've just heard
that been agreed.
Yes, Chair. I did confirm that for 24 units, the 30% would be 7.2. We have sought 7. It has to be rounded down. But
yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Now, and the second point is I'm concerned about the NHS. Everybody knows the NHS, quite frankly, is a mess. And all they're going to do, as usual, is keep asking the public for more money and more money and more money, and nothing gets done. We're well aware that the doctor's surgeries are oversubscribed. We all know how difficult it is to get appointments. In particular, certainly in Kettering itself, and Weavers and Eskdale, and how it is with them. And my comment, I guess, on this is the fact that the NHS were originally asked, so the comment that Development Services made, and thank you about it, that NHS don't want to know under £100,000, strictly is not right.
I have seen an email, actually, because this is something I asked of officers, because I was concerned about the integrated care board. There wasn't contributions, but they haven't come back to officers. And when they've asked for further details, and I've seen an email, so that can be clarified, can be confirmed by officers.
So are we saying they've answered now to say they're not interested on the 24 units?
That's correct. They're only seeking contributions at this time on 100 units or more, and we did make quite a significant effort to get a response.
I have to say, it absolutely beggars belief the state this damn country is in, and the fact that there is an opportunity and somebody in the NHS is not taking advantage of it. And I'm absolutely disgusted with it, quite frankly. It won't hold back on the decision of it, but I do want it known publicly, quite frankly, that we've got an NHS that's in a bloody mess, and they can't be bothered to ask for
we don't need it at the moment. Yes, we do need it. If Weavers have got oversupply and Estelle are oversupplied, they need the money. And yet we've got incompetent people saying we don't need it. Honestly, I can't tell you how cross it makes me on things like this.
I do understand the Integrated Care Board is currently preparing its infrastructure strategy, which is due to be finalised at the end of this year, which will guide estate priorities. But I must admit, it really floored me that I was very surprised.
Can I come back, Chair?
Councillor Jelly, yeah.
If you look at 5.11 about the NHS Integrated Care Board, it states in there that they've requested £20,861.
They did request that on the original scheme, which was for 30 units. However, they didn't provide their method of calculation, and when we reconsulted them on the reduced scheme for 24 units, they declined to respond. Therefore, we can't seek the original figure because that applied to a larger scheme. And unfortunately, they have now stated they aren't going to be seeking contributions. So that's in their hands.
Well, I've got a meeting with fellow councillors on Friday with the chair of the Integrated Care Board, and one of my questions is going to be, what are you doing about contributions to the NHS? We've got these developments coming into the area, and we need this money from the Section 106 to improve the services that we've currently got. I live in Rothwell, and we've got Rothwell and Desborough Healthcare, and they can barely, well, Mark lives in Desborough, they can barely cover the people that are going to their surgeries. We need to do that. One of the questions to them is, what are you doing about future provision? Because this is just not acceptable.
Officers have attempted to contact them on more than one occasion, I understand.
Yes, I've emailed them directly, consulted them twice on the same scheme to try and get a response, and tried to call them as well, and I've had no response other than the email that we have now saying they're not seeking contributions.
Are there any other further comments from members? Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to clarify, there's been a few points raised tonight, and I understand the committee's concerns that have been raised, but some of the stuff that's been raised is a non-material consideration. To be quite honest as well, a lot of the things that have been asked are actually in the report if they read it. And you know, in terms of the 106 and that, it mentions that about highways. If we were to object on parking on this proposal over highways comments, we would the applicant would probably take us to appeal and we would lose. And that, so what would you we can only look on material considerations. And if you look at the report and look at what's been raised and look at it on balance, I think we have no alternative but to support this. We can only make decisions on policy and what's put in front of us, not what we think and what we think, you know, morally. It's what the law tells us to do. And we have to bear that in mind. The policies are here in black and white. Some of them they are a bit grey in areas, including local and national. But perfectly honest, I think we have to support this application.
Thank you. If there are no further speakers, we've got a proposer and a seconder to grant planning permission subject to conditions as shown on page 18. So it's recommended that planning... Did I hear? No. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody call out. It is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to conditions listed in paragraph 11 of the report and subject to completion of an acceptable Section 106 agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations, and B, should an acceptable Section 106 agreement securing appropriate planning obligations not be completed by 25th of January 2025 or any further extension of time agreed in writing between the applicant and the local planning authority, that it be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy to refuse planning permission. Therefore, we've got a proposer and a seconder. Can I have all those in agreement, please? Can you put your hands up Can you make sure your hands are up high so I can see? Any against? Again, can you put your hands up? There's no extension, so that is shares. I think we have very poor grounds to refuse this planning application, and I think a lot of the questions have been answered. I vote in favour of granting. Thank you. So therefore, that's carried. Thank you, everyone. So that takes us on to the second item, which is, and we have, oh, sorry, let me just, which is 4.223/00409/DPA, Cooperative Retail Services Limited in Alexandra Road, Corby, NN17 1PE. And I understand, Vishana, you're taking this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application, NC 23-00409 DPA 6 consent for the mixed-use residential-led development. The scheme will comprise 150 dwellings and 2,165 square feet of commercial floor spaces and associated infrastructure. Sorry. So this is the location plan where you can see the application site marked in red line boundary. This is the aerial view of the site where you can see the application site is located to the west of Wood Street and to the north of Alexandra Road. The site comprises a total area of 0.8 hectare. The site adjoins residential dwellings to the east on Richmond Road. Wessex Retail Park lies to the south, and some small retail units with flats above lies to the west. To the north of the site is a mixture of residential, commercial, and community buildings of Cottingham Road. So this is the proposed site layout. The proposal comprises 3 main blocks. The main block, PH1, which facing the Alexandra Road and then wraps around Wood Street with a prominent corner 6 stories high and stepping down to up to 2 stories towards Richmond Road and 3 stories towards the entrance. The second block, PH2.1, follows the main block along Wood Street, creating a gateway entrance to the site. And the third block, PH2.2, is located in front of the gateway, stepping down to 3 stories on its near end existing dwellings to the east of the site. The proposal will create a new vehicular access to the site from Wood Street. So these are some 3D views of the scheme. The first one is the view if you look from the Alexandra Road, and the second one is from the courtyard looking to the buildings. And the third one to the right is from Wood Street. And again, the last one is from Alexandra Road. So this is illustrative street scene, which shows the first street scene AA from the Alexandra Road. And the second one is from Wood Street, where you can see the entrance in the middle. So these are the front elevations of the main block from Alexandra Road and Wood Street. So these are the elevation plans. The right elevation is the elevation where the Richmond Road properties will see the building, the main block PH1, and the rear elevation, elevation A, will be seen from the courtyard. So these are the elevation plans for building block 2.1. Again, the side slopes down from south to north, and you can see from the front elevation that it will step down to 3 stories at the end of the block. So these are the elevation plans for the building block PH 2.2, which will be located in the middle of the site. All the windows facing to the Richmond Road properties will be obscure glazed. So we have requested applicant to provide a shadow study to understand the overshadowing impact on the adjoining gardens of the residential properties along Richmond Road, and these are the winter solstice, where you can see the existing condition at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. And these are the winter solstice with the proposed scheme. This is the springtime shadow impact with the existing unit. And this is with the proposed buildings. This is the summer solstice. So basically, from the shadow study, it shows that according to the BRE guidance, the proposal will not block any daylight or will not impose any shadowing more than 2 hours. So they will receive two hours of sunlight in each season. So this is the ground floor plan. So the commercial floor space will be at the corner. This is the first floor plan. I'm sorry, I couldn't make it more bigger and clearer. Sorry about that. And this is the second floor plan. So I've added some site photographs of the existing site. So this is the co-op site. The building is vacant since 2016. This is Alexandra Road looking towards the site. This is Wood Street. The proposed access will be taken in the middle of the Wood Street. And this photograph has been taken from the junction of roundabout from George Street looking towards the site, where you can see to the west the retail units and the flats above. So this is the site looking towards north, and you can see the tree belt which adjoins the Richmond Road properties to the east. Again, looking towards the tree belt, this is Alexandra Road. The existing site benefits from two access points, one from Alexandra Road and one from Wood Street. Both will be closed. So in terms of a neighbor response, we have sent letters to 89 properties, and in the first round we have received 22 letters of objection, and in the second round we have received 21 letters of objection, and also we have received an MP objection. Section 7.6 of the report summarizes the issues raised, and we have received an additional letter from MP Lee Barron yesterday, and this has been attached to the report in Appendix A, where he has raised concern regarding the Section 106 agreement and whether the applicant has contacted registered providers for the affordable units, the parking capacity, car parking ownership, noise assessment, and flood risk. So in terms of the Section 106 agreement, the applicant is aware of the heads of terms, and if the application is approved, the details will be agreed in due course with the consultation of legal department. And in terms of whether the applicant has contacted the registered providers or not, we haven't received any evidence from the applicant, but generally if the units you offer is less than 10, the registered providers are not interested. Initially, applicant offered 5%, which equates to 7 units. In terms of parking, noise and flood, I will discuss this in my later slides. So the key issues are principle of development, the layout, appearance, impact on the neighboring properties, highways and the standard of accommodation, the risk on flood, impact on ecology. So in terms of the principle of development, this is allocated site. Part 2 local plan for Corby allocated this site as one of the 4 mixed-use redevelopment sites within the town centre. Policy 24 is accompanied by Policy TC3, which sets out detailed guidance for this site to provide a mixed-use development, including a range of town centre uses. For positive transformation and regeneration of the town centre, a policy-compliant mix of around 150 dwellings is suggested. This policy also supports higher density development to maximize the town centre location and make the most efficient use of land. In terms of the layout, scale, and materials, the proposal involves a mix of units which varies from 1 to 3 bedrooms. This includes 73 one-bed apartments, 76 two-bed apartments, and 1 three-bed apartments. The proposed layout of the scheme does not give the appearance of a cramped form of development and will be a considerable visual enhancement to what exists at present. We have engaged with place shaping services since the pre-application stage to move the layout and the design in a positive direction. And urban design officers are happy with the amended scheme. In terms of residential and neighboring amenity, the proposed units are in accordance with the national space standards. Each property will have necessary amenity space, which includes the courtyard, the balconies, and other amenity areas. The proposal will provide approximately 0.22 hectare of open space for the benefit of future occupiers in the form of 2 courtyard, including some ancillary landscaping. So in the shadow study, you have seen that no loss of light will occur due to the separation distance. The residential separation distance exceeds 29 meter to the nearest property on Richmond Reed.
Can you let the officer continue? Thank you.
In terms of noise impact, all the external balconies on the Wood Street and Alexander Road elevations will be fitted with solid glass balustrade at 1.2 meters in height with acoustic softies. Our environmental health officer has assessed the noise report, and he has suggested 2 conditions, conditions 9 and 10, to control measures related to noise issue. Applicant has submitted an ecological appraisal of the site and following an extended phase 1 habitat survey. The survey indicates that the site has low conservation value. The eastern boundary will be enhanced with additional trees and hedgerow planting to reinforce the tree belt. Bird and bat boxes will be also incorporated within the fabric of the building. So condition 24 is suggested to control matters related to ecology. In terms of highway safety, highways impact for the proposed development, the existing vehicular access point will be closed from Wood Street and Alexandra Road, and a new vehicular access will be created. The layout has been arranged as a clear internal road with shared surfaces with pedestrian priority. The courtyards are connected from Alexandra Road and Wood Street to ensure the internal circulation of the pedestrians. A total of 76 car parking spaces along with 2 disabled bay, 3 motorcycle spaces, and 228 cycle parking spaces have been provided. It is considered that as the development is in a sustainable location within the town center, the emphasis will be placed on residents and visitors walking, cycling, and using public transport and public parking areas. Therefore, a reduction of on-site parking provision is considered acceptable in this instance. The car parking spaces will be available on first-come, first-served license basis and will be managed by private management company that is the applicant's proposal. And also there will be prepaid 3-year period prepaid membership for car hire company or similar arrangements. So for the commercial units, no parking has been, provision has been provided. Again, this is a sustainable location, and within the town center there are public parking spaces, so it is considered that it will not cause any significant pressure on the existing parking capacity. We have recommended conditions relating to access, car parking management, cycle storage, provision of car club bays, and travel plan. Highways have assessed the proposal and they haven't raised any objection, subject to planning condition related to highways matters. In terms of flood risk and drainage, the site is within the flood zone 1. Flood risk assessment along with the drainage strategy has been submitted. This has been successfully resolved by LLFA, England Water and Environment Agency. They have suggested conditions which has been attached in the report. So the applicant has submitted a viability report, which has been independently assessed by Chris White. I will hand over to Chris White. Thank you.
Thank you.
The viability is challenging on this site from an independent point of view. There's a standard assessment.
Sorry, can I just stop you for a minute? Would you mind just introducing yourself so everyone's
yes,
clear?
sure.
Sorry, thank you.
My name's Chris White. My company is Whiteland Strategies Limited, and I specialise in undertaking viability appraisals for planning applications. I act for local authorities as well as developers, so the work I do for local authorities is effectively as an independent. So I look at the appraisals using benchmarks and compare it to other sites of similar sizes, etc., and determine whether there are surplus monies for Section 106, and when there aren't, what the recommended levels should be. So that was my role.
Thank you.
So in terms of the details, I was saying the viability is challenging on this site. A lot of the input assumptions to the appraisals, I actually, from a cost point of view, I actually reduced them. So things like infrastructure costs, I reduced. The land value allowance, I reduced. The fees, I reduced. So, and the bill costs, which were put forward for the apartments, are quite reasonable for a small scheme of this sort of, well, I say small scheme, it's 150 units, but as opposed to a national developer, the bill costs are quite reasonable. I also reduced the allowance for the what's called externals, which is for parking and utilities and roads and stuff. So effectively, from a cost point of view, my assessment looked at probably a minimum cost package because everything was reduced. From the values point of view on the appraisal, what the applicant submitted was either on par with what other apartments were being sold for or were slightly above. So there was no reason to say that the values were being underplayed. They were fair and reasonable. And the other big headline ones are things like profit. The profit that was submitted was not at the top of the range. It was at 17.5%. Effectively, what I did, I ignored that anyway, and I re-ran the appraisal to see what the profit could be. And I also reduced the land value to 0, given the extra costs which were involved in the project. Given all of those parameters, it was clearly evident that the policy-compliant approach was unviable. That was obvious because the outcome was a negative profit. Even with 100% open market units, the profit was still substantially below what the MPPF would allow a developer to receive. I did some sensitivity around that as well about how you might actually develop the site in a different way to keep the finance costs down. And with all those sensitivities and removing the land value, I could get a profit for the developer, but again, it was sub what the NPPF would normally allow them. So in conclusion, the scheme is definitely challenging from a viability point of view, and we're struggling to provide any affordable housing and 106 contributions as a consequence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Notwithstanding the viability position, the applicant has offered 210,000 towards the provision of off-site affordable housing and 150,000 towards education services and 5,000 travel plan monitoring fee, which are lower than the required amount. So there are some non-financial obligations as well, such as mega rider bus ticket provision, employment and construction training, and the 3-year prepaid membership of car hire company and similar arrangements. So the recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 5 speakers on this application, and the first speaker is Teresa Bannigan. Thank you. When you have 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I represent the views of over 50 residents who are not against a development but vehemently object to the current proposal. Fundamental requirements and guidelines of statutory consultees have not been met. There are too many conditions in paragraph 15 of the report pack to be managed, plus the S106 still to be completed and its contents monitored. History tells us the Planning Department does not have the resources to ensure compliance and enforce the conditions as demonstrated at Station Quarter, Priors Hall and the issues on the Weetabix site. The local plan states developments have to be financially viable. This one is not, as detailed in the viability assessment available on the planning portal. With such a complex application, we can't just rely on the planning team's recommendation. We have read and thoroughly reviewed the planning documents and the report pack detailing why the proposal is recommended for approval. We ask you to consider the detrimental consequences and long-term implications of permitting this development and to reject the proposal. The report pack states that the proposal is in line with numerous policies. This isn't true. The local DM manager's letter dated 2nd of August documented numerous issues and concerns, none of which have been addressed. The residents of Lloyd's Ward and wider Corby Borough will have to live daily with the consequences of how this area is developed according to the local plan part 2. We can justifiably counter every point to state our case as to why this proposal should be rejected. 3 minutes is not long enough to do this coherently, so we will list a few of the major concerns and objections to the current application. Full details are in our objection letters. The height, densely populated, noise and light pollution, inadequate infrastructure, our roads are in a state of disrepair, inadequate surface water drainage causing flooded roads, inadequate parking, traffic management issues, especially the Wood Street and George Street junction. Anglian water treatment works are at capacity. The planning officer makes the audacious assessment that the proposed structure is in keeping with the local area. This is blatantly incorrect. The proposed development is surrounded by established residential and commercial buildings, of which over 95% are 2 to 3 stories at most. It will have a hugely overshadowing, dominant and oppressive presence over all the existing neighbouring properties. So in summary, this is an ill-planned, densely populated high-rise development. It will set a precedent. It cannot be supported with the current infrastructure. Therefore, we appeal to you to reject this application.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of clarification from the speaker? No. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next speaker is Hannah Pratt. Again, you have 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I also represent the views of 50 residents neighbouring the proposed development. We acknowledge that this site needs redevelopment, but we ask you to consider the detrimental consequences and long-term implications of permitting this design and reject this proposal. There are so many documents associated with this planning proposal. It has taken us considerable time and effort to review the details thoroughly. Limited to 3 minutes, I will highlight and go over some of the objections, major objections and concerns we have. The proposed development is too high in structure for this location and too dense in the number of dwellings. The design is not considerate to existing residents in terms of overshadowing, light, noise and air pollution, nor is it considerate to potential future occupants in terms of residential amenity, having extremely small flats and severely limited parking. The developers, in their own words, rebalanced proposed massing after their initial plans were submitted. However, no amount of transitioning could ever be considered more sympathetic to the existing properties along Richmond Road. All western sunlight and daylight will be blocked by the 4 to 6 storey buildings proposed on the site. Illustrative drawings and the plans give the impression that there is an open space between the end block of the development and the properties on Richmond Road, but that space is actually their rear gardens. Of the 150 flats, the larger ones are 2-bedroomed, indicated for occupancy by 4 people, and range in floor space from about 70 to 76 square metres. To help you picture this, 6 average size parking spaces in the UK are equal to about 72 square metres. If the recent pandemic taught the world anything, then it is that we all need enough space to live and protect our general health and well-being. In established inner cities where spaces is severely limited, there might be a need to squeeze in cramped high-rise developments like this, but in Corby, this is not the case. Indeed, the original Lincoln estate in Corby illustrated very clearly the consequences of permitting higher density accommodation. The infrastructure in the area is already inadequate and in a very poor state of repair. Traffic flow in the adjoining streets is already extremely busy. The proposed development will only add to the existing traffic problems. Our schools, health services and emergency services already fail to cope with the number of people accessing them. So to entice another 350 plus people into this neighbourhood on such a small site is totally unacceptable. In summary, we ask you to seriously consider the long-term consequences of permitting this densely populated, high-rise development on such a small site and urge you to please reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of clarification? No, thank you very much. Thirdly, we have Councillor Lynn Buckingham, who's a ward councillor. I think you know the procedures, 3 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes as a ward councillor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Obviously, it's a town centre redevelopment. It's very much needed in terms of the site at the moment is derelict. It attracts a lot of antisocial behaviour, but it's got to be the right development for to go there. The reports themselves don't actually address adequately some of the concerns that are raised, and I feel strongly that any reports that come to committees are of a standard where committee members have that information in front of them. It's been mentioned about the viability in Section 106, so I won't go too much into that. Wonder why Mr. Olaf's concerns weren't addressed, and are they still outstanding? Waste management. Unfortunately, waste management on flatted areas is one of the biggest problems of antisocial behaviour in terms of people dumping stuff, inadequate methods to get your waste to where it's going to be picked up. So it's got to be a lot more information there on how that waste management will work. We've heard about the affordability and the social housing. It's gone from what it should be, 45 units of affordable housing, down to 7. We've heard that from the planner today that we desperately need 1 and 2 bedroomed properties, but we need them to rent, not to buy. I don't know how many care leavers are going to be able to afford to buy any of these flats. The biggest thing for me, though, is the problems with water. Over the years, this site, this town has developed widely. In fact, it's one of the biggest growth areas over the past, goodness knows how long, where you've got 500 units of housing being built. we know that the capacity of the water recycling centre is at capacity already or very near. A development of this sort, and you've got to understand a little bit of the tomography of Corby, because this is one of the lowest spots. You've got the Willow Brook that goes underneath the roads, and any water, excess water coming down will have an impact on flooding. Anglia Water has raised concerns. Environmental Agency has raised serious concerns, and you're just not listening to those concerns. And that's a big concern for the residents around the area, because Cottingham Road, which is at the north side there, floods quite often. And with other developments coming in, you won't have that capacity, because it's the lowest, one of the lowest points in Corby. Parking's been mentioned, but when you bring it all together, you've got the residents' parking, you've got visitor parking, you've got a commercial unit. Yes, there is parking over the other side of the road, but that is due to be built on, or it's part of the local plan where it's, those car parks are going to be used for, or coming forward for housing. The other thing was the height of the properties. So I don't see anything in the reports about the Hackett Review and the new building regulations for buildings over 18 metres or six stories high. So the internal and the external, you know, obviously following on from Grenfell, those building regulations are there for a purpose. And should be looked at as part of this development. Sorry, need to turn the page. Nope, that's it. So, in consequence, the strategic flood risk strategy has also highlighted the areas around the possible flooding. And again, it's one of those things that alone should stop this development until those things are in place. You know, it's about ensuring that those concerns that have been raised are adequately addressed. Thank you very much. That's all the time I will take.
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. Do members have any questions of clarification? No, thank you. Okay. So the next speaker is Sav Patel, the agent for the applicant. Thank you. You're both welcome to come out, and you've both got 3 minutes. So, if you want to go first. So, sorry, and I'll just introduce you both then. So, you have Sav Patel, the agent for the applicant, and Patrick Boyle, who's the applicant, and you both have 3 minutes. Put the microphone on, thank you.
So to fully endorse...
Would you like to start?
Sorry, yes.
3 minutes, thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Otherwise you can't always hear on the recording.
Thank you. Yeah, good evening, members. I'm here to speak on behalf of my client, Glenrowan Homes, to fully endorse the case officer's recommendation for approval. Prior to the submission of this application, this detailed planning application on this allocated regeneration site, my client engaged with officers at pre-application discussions. My client engaged with officers for over several months to scope out the main issues and agree the details in terms of design, scale and layout of the proposed development, in accordance with the design principles set out in the allocation policy TC3. This included a site visit with officers and a design workshop with the design advisors. Alongside the pre-application engagement, my client also engaged in extensive public consultation with local residents and key stakeholders, as set out in the committee report. This included 3 public exhibitions and a presentation to the residents of Richmond Road for their comments prior to the submission of the final scheme. Following the submission of the application, my client carried out further amendments to the scheme to respond to comments, which included reducing the scale of the development adjacent to the eastern boundary to address the residential amenity concerns, amongst other things, and undertook all the necessary assessments to demonstrate that the proposed scheme would be acceptable and would not have a significant adverse impact on the residents adjoining the site. The overall proposal is now fully supported by the Council's urban design advisors and would not have any adverse impact on the residential amenity of the occupiers in Richmond Road. The proposed scheme has also been through an exhaustive consultation process and in doing so has addressed all the technical matters relating to drainage, flood risk, highways, fire service, environmental health, ecology, landscaping. The proposed scheme is of a high quality design and meets all the design principles set out in the policy and fundamentally complies with the local plan and national planning policy framework when taken as a whole. Therefore, the proposed scheme would enable the redevelopment of this allocated regeneration site for the benefit of the town centre and provide housing for local people in a sustainable location. I will now hand over to my client who would like to say a few words.
Sorry, you have 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, councillors, members of the public. My name is Patrick Boyle. I'm a director, shareholder of the applicant, Glenrowan Homes Limited. The company has a registered address in Corby and is an SME house builder. It's part of a family-owned group of companies headed by MPB Structures, and we employ 1,000 people, and we've been in Corby for over 30 years. Our turnover is over 125 million. We love Corby. We love Corby. It's been very good to us. It's been very good to our people. We're 7th best in the country at what we do. We started a house building business because we care. We want to look after our people. We want to create jobs, and we want to create homes that we would like to buy ourselves. We agreed at a board meeting that we would invest in Corby for BA commercial and create opportunities for jobs, and that we would also, as a family sustainable business, look to create housing for the jobs that we've created. Corby needs housing. We've got people in our office who commute daily from Derby because they can't find rented accommodation to work with us. We purchased the site 3 years ago. It's a critical element of that plan. We bought the site because it was included in the local plan of 150 units, and we shared the vision of the council in that a signature building should be built on that site, with plans for 2 further buildings just along this road. We've been on a 2-year journey with the planning department, and we're very grateful for all their support. They are trying to appease all parties, and they have a difficult job to do. But we have had public consultations, and we work very closely with them, and we are grateful for their support. The process concluded that there was no viability for the social housing, and that's a fact. There is no money. The problem is, as a construction business, it costs the same money to build these apartments in Milton Keynes, in Birmingham, as it does in Corby, but the value isn't there. The honourable gentleman to my left has commented that we had reasonable costs for the house building side of it. That's because we employ local people, and this is an opportunity where local people will get employment. We look for the support of the committee because we want to create this opportunity. It's going to be a £20 million plus building. We are in the top 10 in the UK of CITB grant takers.
Can I just, your 3 minutes is up, so if you could just finish your sentence, that would be good. Thank you.
We're going to create local jobs, young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of either of the speakers for clarification? No. Thank you very much. Thank you. Therefore, for the purposes of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution Rules 19.2 and 19.21, I'll move the recommendation stated on pages 53 and 83 that A, planning permission be granted subject to conditions listed in paragraph 15 of the report and subject to completion of a satisfactory Section 106 agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations, and B, should a satisfactory Section 106 agreement securing appropriate planning obligations not be completed by the 31st of January 2025 or any further extension of time agreed in writing between the applicant and the local planning authority, that it be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy to refuse planning permission. I'll open the floor up. Oh, sorry, yes, of course. I need a seconder. Sorry, Councillor Jelly, thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder, and I open the floor up for debate. Thank you. Councillor Addison.
Thank you, Chair. Again, because my eyesight's not very good. Can you show me where the entrance to the site's going to be, and also the elevation, please? That's quite... So is there just one entrance to the site? Is that on Wood Street? Or
the existing, there are two exits to the site. One is here, and another one is from Wood Street. So both will be closed off, and a new access will be created from the Wood Street, according to the specification of the highways.
Right, so there's no... Okay. Thank you.
And you wanted to see the elevations?
Just what the elevation is. It's quite imposing. Is that just an artist impression, or is that what they're actually going to look like?
This is the elevation plan, and the previous slide was 3D. It was like illustrative, but this is the elevation plan. This will be the real.
Right. Would it help to explain to members where the elevation is facing? That might help as well. Thank you.
I cannot go back. Yeah,
Can't go
just
back.
Going forward.
Okay.
So which button? Back one. Oh yeah, yeah, I found it. The backspace.
Just use your arrows to go back. These ones, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So this is the elevation of the main block from the Alexandra Road, the top one from the Alexandra Road. As it wraps around, the second one is from Wood Street, because it will be like this shape, and the next one. So this is for the same building, but you are looking rear elevation A and rear elevation B from the courtyard, from inside the main block, and the right elevation on the top will be near the end where the Richmond Road properties are. And the left elevation at the bottom is where the entrance to the site. So this is the main block. And this block, page 2.1, will be located at the end of the Wood Street, completing the wraparound. So you can see that front elevation is the one which you can see from Wood Street, and the rear elevation is the elevation which you will see from the inside the courtyard. The right elevation is near the entrance, and the left elevation will be at the bottom of the Wood Street. So this is elevation plan page 2.2, which the block is in the middle of the site. So the front elevation is facing the main block internally with one of the courtyards in the middle, and the rear elevation will be facing another side of the courtyard, which will be facing to the north of the site. And the right elevation you are looking at will be facing the Richmond Road properties. And the left elevation you will see when you enter the site. Yeah, those are the ones.
Thank you. From members? Councillor Dion?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And, you know, I agree. I mean, this site definitely needs, you know, something done to it. It is an absolute tip at the moment. But whether this is the right thing, I really don't know. Because to say that this is in keeping with existing developments in Corby, I cannot name an existing development in Corby which is 6 stories high. And to have something as imposing and as dense as this looks, I just don't feel that it's the right thing for that, what is actually quite a small piece of land. It used to be a supermarket, and not a big supermarket at that. It was a relatively small supermarket with a car park at the back. And to think of perhaps 350 to 400 people living on that one piece of land just does, to me, does not make sense. Now, I appreciate from the builder and the developer that people are saying it's not viable and there's no profit in it. If there's no profit in it, why not take a couple of stories of it down then, so that it isn't so imposing? Because if you're not making any money, if you want to put back to the people of Corby, which is what we're hearing from the developers, then make the development something which is in keeping with Corby as it is now. And I'm sorry, but this is not in keeping with it. This is high density flats that you would see in a city centre or somewhere, you know, some new development in London or Docklands even. This is not suitable for Corby. And Councillor Buckingham made a point about the Willowbrook. The Willowbrook runs along Cottingham Road, just at the bottom of this development. It's underground, people don't see it, but you only have to walk 50 yards to the left of George Street and the Willowbrook is there. It floods frequently and then goes underground and comes out towards Weldon. And if all of the surface water and waste from this development is going into the Willowbrook, I'm afraid I think that's got disaster written all over it. So I'm sorry, I'm fully in support of that site being developed, but I don't think that this is the right development at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. This site is in accordance with Corby Part 2 local plan, which was agreed in 2021, and I believe If you refer to the application, the flood risk and draining is dealt with under 9.6, and I notice the Environment Agency have withdrawn their objection. That's on top of page 60. And there is comment by Anglian Water as well, which have asked, did you want to... What, can we have one meeting, please? Can we sorry, thank you. I don't know if do you want to comment? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Anglian Water and Environment Agency initially raised concern, but when the applicant submitted more details regarding drainage strategy and additional information, they have removed their objection, and in their revised comments at the end of the consultation, you'll see under every heading that they haven't, because they removed their objection.
Thank you.
And also Flood Authority assessed the strategy and the flood risk assessment report, and they have suggested they are satisfied with the information, and they have suggested conditions at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. And the conditions will form part of the planning obligations if this application is granted. Councillor Addison, is your hand up? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The previous Borough Council did regenerate several properties within the town centre, but they didn't impact on the environment as this property is. This development looks like it's going to do. It's very imposing, and I think it's going to impact on the residents living in Richmond Road, and also it's just too big and too dense. Although we do need to regenerate that site, it's just too big for that site.
I do agree. I think that site definitely needs regeneration. Did you want to come in? Thank you.
Yes, please. If I can summarise in terms of helping members to decide. First of all, fundamentally, Part 2 of the Corby Local Plan that the Council approved in 2021 does say that this site can accommodate around 150 dwellings. So this proposal fits with, the numbers fit in with that. So it is already council policy that's approved. It's a statutory policy, our local plan. In terms of helping you to make your balanced considerations, we are talking about 73 one-bed flats and 76 two-bed flats and 1 3-bed. In terms of the smaller accommodation, as I said earlier, the NNC area has a desperate need for these smaller housing for young people coming into the area to live and work. So it is about regenerating not only housing but the economy, because they'll live in the area, spend in the area, work in the area. Secondly, as we said, we need to regenerate this site. So it ticks that box. The site is sustainable. As I said, it fits in with local policy. In terms of affordable housing, they've also offered to pay £210,000 for off-site affordable housing, but they're providing a need for the area, and also £150,000 for education. Although we're talking about the number of people regenerate the area in that they'll make the shops, the schools more viable, because they'll be, in terms of eating places and so on. So one of the ways you do regenerate town centres is to try and have more footfall, and this development fits that agenda. So I ask you to consider all the wider impacts as well. Thank you.
If I may,
Councillor
Chair,
Brown.
can I just come back?
Can I get... I've just called... Did you want to come back on that?
Yeah,
specifically?
I fully appreciate what the officer has said. However, the actual impact, the visual impact on people living there, they've got to live with that, haven't they, for the next 50, 60, whatever years. So we've got to take that into consideration as well. We fully understand about the regeneration side of it and the need to bring people into the town centres, but we've also got to look at the visual impact that it has on people's lives.
But as the officer said, the Corby Part 2 local plan, which was agreed, did suggest 150 is suitable. So thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the previous councillor's comments actually about the overbearing height, and I think it's actually going to have quite an impact on the residents of Richmond Road. However, I'm more concerned about the fact there's actually no mention of any Section 106 for the NHS within this report, unless I've missed it, and I've been through it several times as we've sat here and earlier today. Councillors around the table, if you've ever had the misfortune to need to go to Corby Urgent Care because they can't get into a GP, will know that it's standing room only from the minute the doors open to the minute they close. We're looking at another, 450 people if this planning goes ahead. And I just think we need to know what sort of Section 106 money is going to be given for NHS. Because again, we've got the same problems we mentioned in the previous application. It's overwhelmed now. This is just going to make matters a lot worse. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on that? Thank you. Because we, particularly with viability as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we checked the list of the consultees, I haven't seen any NHS on it. And even if we have consulted them and they required Section 106 contribution because of the viability, I'm concerned that whether we can request that contribution from the applicant.
Are there any more comments from councillors? So, therefore, we'll move to the vote. So we've had a proposer and a seconder to grant the application as shown on page 53. If I'll just read that out again, it's recommended that A, planning permission be granted subject to conditions listed in paragraph 15 of the report and subject to completion of a satisfactory Section 106 agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations. And B, should a satisfactory Section 106 agreement securing appropriate planning obligations not be completed by the 31st of January 2025 or any further extension of time agreed in writing between the applicant and the local planning authority, that it be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy to refuse planning permission. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. Can we take a vote? All those in favour of granting this application, can you raise your hands clearly so we can see? So this is that 5? 5, 4. Okay. Can you any against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there are no abstentions. We'll need to proceed. The recommendation is not carried and this item has not been determined. Therefore, there needs to be an alternative motion to be moved, seconded, debated and voted upon. So can I have an alternative motion? Councillor Brown.
Could we not defer the application until we've heard back from the NHS about some Section 106 funding?
I
Is
take
that a
advice on
possibility?
If members wish to do that, can we ask? Thank you. So we've got a proposer to defer the application. Sorry, can I just stay with me? Just take a second. I just had advice that we need to be clear about what we're voting for. So if we, is the are we proposing that we defer this application to get a response from the NHS, but we really need an end date for that, because do we defer it until the next meeting and ask for some? So we have a proposer to defer until the next meeting for officers to contact the NHS. Councillor Watts?
I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to clarify in my own mind. A lot of the talk has been about the vastness of the application and the flooding issues and things. Are we really sure that if we come back with an answer to the Section 106 agreement to the NHS, that's going to satisfy enough people to make a difference on the outcome of this vote? Do you see what I mean?
Yes. So if we have a... So we've got a proposer. If we get a seconder for that, then we will debate that on that. So we haven't got a seconder yet. If we... Is anyone seconding Councillor Brown's proposal? So it's not seconded, so we'll need another proposal. Can I just remind members, though, that flooding has been dealt with in the report. And they have, and planning conditions cover that. I would confirm that, please.
Yes, I mean, I have mentioned earlier that Flood Authority, Anglian Water and Environment Agency, 3 of the consultees has been consulted several times, and none of them are holding any objections.
Thank you. Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, many of the people who've spoken tonight, you know, and representing local people, have concerns about it being overdeveloped and about the density and the impact on the people who live in Richmond Road. And I think they're right. You know, it's that at the moment, I know there's an old building there at the moment. It's only like, what, 1.5 stories. And then we're going to put a 6-story building in. That's a big impact on the area. I know the area well. I used to shop in that co-op when it was open. But I think it's... whether we do it on an overdevelopment, I think, and the impact on local people and the amenities. That'd be my suggestion.
Can I just ask officers' advice on that? Because the local plan, I mean, we need a seconder, but I would ask, because the local plan which was only agreed in 2021 by this council, does suggest that there is room for 150 dwellings on that.
Oh, I agree, Chair, but I mean, when it comes to reality, it's the impact on local people, isn't it?
Thank you. So can I just confirm, Councillor Jelly, that you're proposing that we refuse the application because of overdevelopment, the density, impact on residential amenity for residents of Richmond Road, and the scale of the development? So before we debate that, we'll need a sec. Yeah. So we would need to put in there that planning permission be refused on the grounds of for those reasons, and the final wording of the reasons for refusal be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy in consultation with the Chair of the Planning Committee. So we'll need a seconder for that, Councillor Watts. And now we debate. This is open for debate. Councillor Diell.
Oh,
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Jenny. I think that we all feel that this is slightly overdeveloped. Just because a local plan that was written in 2021 says that the area should accommodate or could accommodate 150 homes doesn't mean to say that you have to go to max that out. You know, you could have come in at 120, 130 homes and still made the area look nice as part of that redevelopment, which is desperately needed. I would just be suggesting, if it was me, and saying to the developer, just take a couple of those stories down to make it look as though it would fit in with the surroundings of Corby. But as it stands, it is overdeveloped. And we've had a pandemic since 2020, 2021. We know the impact of packing people in housing. It's not healthy. There is no gym. There's no facilities in this development that would promote some healthy living. There's limited outdoor space. And I just feel there should be slightly less people, slightly less flats in that area. And I please urge the developers to have a look at it again, see what they can do, and bring it back to the committee with a slightly different layout or structure that we'd all be happy with, because none of us are happy with it as it stands now. So, yeah, that's what I really wanted to say. Thank you again.
Thank you. Councillor Jelly, did you want to... You had your hand up, so that was... I believe there are balconies on these, so, I mean, I was pleased to see that. So, are there any further comments from members? Therefore, we'll go to the vote, and we're recommending that we refuse this application on the basis... So if I just read out the wording so that we're correct. That planning permission be refused on the grounds of overdevelopment, density, impact on residential amenity for the residents of Richmond Road and the scale of the development, and that the final wording of the reasons for refusal be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy in consultation with the Chair of the Planning Committee. So we have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour of refusing the application? Any against? 3. Thank you. Therefore, that's planning application has been refused. Thank you. Can I thank the speakers? Yes. That takes us on to the final application this evening, which is (4.3) NE/24/00285/full Lilford Park, Lilford Hall, Lilford. Thank you. And Lisa, you're taking this.
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought for the conversion of former workshop buildings to create 3 dwellings. Members are in receipt of an update. We just wanted to confirm that the mitigation against the recreational pressures clause to the zone of influence have been received, and additional correspondence from a councillor and also a neighbour have been received, and a number of matters have been clarified to them and included below. Now, the Lilford Hall estate is located on the northern side of Lilford Road to the west of the parish of Lilford-cum-Wigsthorpe. The estate notably comprises of Lilford Hall, a Grade 1 listed building, and is set within 80 acres of parkland. The application site is located in the northeastern corner of the estate and is physically separated from Lilford Hall by in excess of 250 metres. The site is enclosed by an existing wall boundary treatment. 3 disused buildings are located within these walls. These buildings are considered to be non-designated heritage assets and are referred to as the barn, the cottage and the sawmill. And this is the location plan just to show you the application site. And this is the proposed site plan. As mentioned, it's proposed to convert the buildings to 3 dwellings. Now, the key planning considerations are the principle of development, heritage impacts, design and impact on the character and appearance of the area, highway safety and parking, and tree impact. Now, this slide shows the existing elevations. And this slide shows the elevations of the largest building proposed. This is the sawmill. This building would have 5 bedrooms. The roof ridge would be raised by less than half a metre to allow sufficient head height, and a lean-to is proposed. This slide shows the proposed elevations for the barn and the cottage. The barn would be a 3-bedroom dwelling, and the cottage would be a 2-bedroom dwelling. Now, this is the proposed ground floor plan for the overall site. And this is the proposed first floor plan. I'll just show some photographs of the site. This is the view, this first one here on the left, this is the view of the site from actually inside the estate itself. And the second photograph is a view of the existing access from within the application site. I took these photos actually myself when I visited the site. And this is the view from outside the estate. So this would be the existing access that would be used. This is a photograph of the barns on the adjoining site that were converted to dwellings. And this is the sawmill as existing. This is the barn. And slightly overgrown, this is the cottage. I did actually steal this photograph on the right from the information submitted to support the application, just to show you the building with less coverage. Now, with regards to the application, members are just made aware that this isn't a Class Q application for seeking the prior approval of the local planning authority. This is a full planning application where certain building works are allowed and considered. Members are also advised that the applicant has sought pre-application advice from the council, and the principle of development was found to be acceptable by officers earlier this year. Policy 11 of the Joint Core Strategy supports the reuse of redundant buildings, and this is supported by Policy EM1 of the local plan. Both policies support paragraph 84 of the National Planning Policy Framework. The non-designated heritage assets are well contained and an existing access would be utilised. Modest extensions are proposed, and the proposal would retain as many original features as would be possible. In terms of the impact on the assets, paragraph 209 of the framework is engaged, and a balancing exercise required that would weigh up the benefits of the proposal against the harm caused to the assets. Now, in this case, the applicant has worked with Historic England and also the Conservation Officer for the council, and the harm caused would be considered to be less than substantial. The buildings are in a state of disrepair, and the proposal would better their condition and realise the optimum use of the site. The proposal would cause no harm to the character and appearance of the area, and the application is supported by, again, the officer, as mentioned, the Conservation Officer and Historic England, who raised no objection. In terms of highway impact, there is adequate parking available and a turning head to the northeast, and a parking layout is required by condition, and the local authority, the highway authority, have reviewed the application and they do not object, and they also confirmed that they didn't need to attend this meeting, or didn't foresee they needed to attend this meeting this evening, as the application was not considered contentious by them. With regard to tree impact, a condition would be imposed to ensure the root protection area of adjacent trees are protected. And for the reasons stated, members are requested to support the proposal and grant planning permission, subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have 4 speakers on this application. And the first speaker is Pat Silburn, third party. Thank you. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes. When you're ready, thank you.
Good evening. Although we feel the reuse of redundant buildings and utilising the site is positive for the village, as residents we have real concerns that this proposal for 3 dwellings is overdevelopment, which we do not feel has been sufficiently addressed. This is a 10% increase in housing in a hamlet with no infrastructure. The access road is a private single-track road, 380 metres in length, approximately 4 metres in width, with no speed limit and no passing places. It is used by cars, articulated heavy goods vehicles, agricultural vehicles, school buses, pedestrians and cyclists. Some agricultural vehicles are up to 3 metres in width and occupy nearly the width of the road, which is a potential hazard. Our greatest concerns, and I feel it should be the greatest concern of all those in the room, is the aspect of child safety, as school buses pick up and drop off on a blind bend 10 metres from the proposed site. This impacts children getting to and from the buses, being picked up and dropped off, as well as children already on the bus. The site access is adjacent to the heart of the village, which incorporates the postbox, village notice board, defibrillator, bench, bin and school pick-up and drop-off point. Although this site was historically in commercial agriculture use, it has not been used for many years, and therefore 1, let alone 3 dwellings would introduce additional traffic. Drainage from various properties, as well as the road surface water drains, runs under the site. As it is a private, unadopted road, the surface water drains are not maintained by the local authority. When it frequently becomes blocked, flooding occurs from the surface water drain, which is only 2 metres from the proposed access, which is a problem, and is only resolved by the goodwill of residents. And 764, it is stated that the sawmill would remain separated from the boundary shared with the neighbouring site by approximately 2 metres. However, the plans show only 500 millimetres. This is not sufficient space to safely erect a ladder for high-level maintenance for the other buildings. There does not appear for any reason for a new wall to be erected to the side of the adjacent property. And we feel the plan should be altered to allow for the 2 metres, as per the case officer's statement, to allow neighbouring properties safe access. A visibility risk assessment has not been provided within the application. We are also concerned about many inaccuracies.
Sorry, your 3 minutes is up, so if you could just finish your sentence. Thank
okay.
You.
I've got 1 paragraph, can I say it?
Yeah, but if it's a short paragraph, if not,
okay.
I'll have to go to the next bit.
The case officer suggests that a precise parking plan is provided in the form of a planning condition. We would strongly contest this. A parking plan, along with plans which show there is sufficient space for bins, bicycle storage, sewage tank, oil tanks or heat pumps should be provided.
Can you finish? Otherwise I have to let everyone else carry on. Thank you.
Thank you.
You go. Do members have any questions of clarification from the speaker? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Jan McLean-Smith, third party. Thank you. Again, when you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Whilst we think a sympathetic development of the site would be a contribution, we see this as overdevelopment. The report says that they think that 7 residents and 1 visitor's parking space is adequate, and we challenge this, as Lilford has no public transport and all visitors will have to drive to the site. We consider 1 visitor's parking space as wholly inadequate to handle what will be the real amount of traffic. 7.73 states it's not considered that the development would result in overspill or impact on the highway pedestrian safety. On our part, we are certain that visitors will in fact end up parking on the road on the verge, constituting a hazard to visibility and safety and a blockage for the frequent agricultural vehicles. And the case report notes that the planned parking space sizes are below standard, supporting our view that this development is best cramped. In addition, the current parking plans have a lack of turning space and there is no vehicle tracking plan. We consider it the most likely case that vehicles will need to back out blind onto the narrow village road on a bend, causing a potential hazard and likely accidents. We contest it is not safe to approve this development without ensuring that a parking and vehicle tracking plan are provided in advance of it being approved. Secondly, in terms of overdevelopment, the report states that bin storage will be adequately achieved at the rear of the building, and we don't see that's possible or in the front. There is no space provision for oil boilers or heat source pumps, and 7.766 in the plan states that this needs to be remedied. In addition, concerns are raised by the case officer in point 12 about the possible noise and adverse effects of heat source pumps. We ask that this is remedied in advance of permission being granted. The challenge to this small site increases when you take into account that we have no main sewage in Lilford, and the development will require the siting of sewage tanks, for which there is no provision in the current plans. Given all the above, we contend that the current plans represent overdevelopment and they should be refused as they stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask, do members have any questions of clarification? No. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Councillor Sean Moffat from Nilford-cum-Wigsthorpe Parish Council. Again, when you're ready, you've got 3 minutes, Sean. Thank you.
Good evening. So I'm the Vice Chair of the Lilford-cum-Wigsthorpe Thorpe A Church Parish Council. And these are the findings of the Parish Council meeting on May the 14th, agenda item 236.614. Whilst in principle the Parish Council supports the redevelopment of this site and reuse of the dilapidated buildings, it feels that it must object to the current application on the following grounds. The density of the proposed development. The site is relatively small, and the proposal for the provision of 3 dwellings appears to constitute overdevelopment of the area and results in limited amenity. Parking. Although the provision of parking spaces appears to meet current policy requirements, potentially there will be overspill vehicles, particularly from visitors, which will need to park on the narrow lane through the village, causing problems to other road users and creating visibility and safety issues. Due also to the size of the parking area, it is feared that vehicles will only be able to leave the site by reversing out onto the corner where visibility is not good. The Parish Council does not feel this is acceptable in terms of vehicle and pedestrian safety. It is also felt that many larger vehicles may have trouble accessing the parking spaces and would therefore have to park on the nearby lane. Traffic movement. Whilst vehicle movements from just 3 dwellings may not seem significant in many cases, due to the nature of the surrounding area and access roads, this may cause considerable issues when taking into account the narrow width of the lane. HGV articulated vehicles, school buses, the huge growth of delivery vehicles and large agricultural machinery will all find significant problems. The provision of refuse bin storage. No provision for storage of refuse bins could be seen on the plans, and it is hard to foresee how they can be accommodated in the courtyard parking area. Potentially, there could be between 6 and 9 wheelie bins on the boundary of the development, thereby causing further problems with visibility. Drainage. No provision of drainage or cesspits could be seen on the plans, and councillors feel that further information on this important matter is essential. Conservation of area. Due to the historic significance of Lilford Hall and its curtilage, the Parish Council feels that there should be consultation with the Conservation Officer before any decision is made to ensure that no historical features are lost due to this development. The Parish Council considers that any developments of the site should be sympathetic to the surroundings and support the historical value of Lilford Hall and the village generally. Concerns have been raised by members of the public at the recent meeting about the west side of the development.
Can you just, sorry, can you come to the end of your sentence?
Yes.
Yeah, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Yeah. The west side of the developments encroaching onto the site of the greenhouses and thereby potentially onto the Grade 2 listed curtilage of Lilford Park. Therefore, the Parish Council feels that it cannot support this application in its current form.
Are there any questions of clarification? No. Can I just ask one quick question? The school bus has been mentioned a couple of times.
Yeah.
That picks up at the end of the road, doesn't it, that road?
No, no longer.
No.
It picks up literally about 10 metres away from the entrance to the access of this place. It no longer picks up at the top of the road.
Right. Thank you.
There's two school buses in the morning and later on.
So where does the school bus turn around?
Well, at the end,
it's the end of the lane. So as you're coming off the roundabout, heading towards...
Yeah, close to the access.
Yeah, the access. So it doesn't go down the lane to where...
No,
no I didn't think so.
No.
There's,
yeah. Oh. It used to pick up, yeah. Yeah. By the post box and notice board.
Thank you. If there are no further... Thank you very much. Sorry. Would you mind? We've got another hand gone up quickly.
Sorry, just a quick one. So, we just mentioned about the burst. So, does the refuge lorry struggle to go down that road?
If there's a refuse van lorry coming down that road, it's impossible for another vehicle to get around it. You have to pull into somebody's drive.
Yeah, so does he reverse down or does he go forward down?
He goes to the end of where there's a space where it's the access to the farm and he turns around there.
Okay.
It's a straight road down there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Backs in, yeah.
Thank you. Can we just have one? Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you mind just switching the... Sorry, actually, we have got another speaker, so thank you. That's fine, thank you. We've got another speaker, so that's right. And finally, we've got Lauren May, agent for the applicant. Again, when you've got 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm speaking as a planning agent this evening in favour of the approval of this application. In our view, it's a relatively straightforward and uncontroversial application in terms of planning policy and material considerations. As the case officer laid out, there is no technical objections to your application raised by any of the statutory consultees. The applicant seeks to convert existing historic buildings and bring them back into use, ensuring their conservation and preservation as non-designated heritage assets, which will positively impact the appearance of the site within the wider village context. The 3 buildings will be converted and sympathetically extended to ensure that the buildings can be used as habitable modern dwellings. The case officer and conservation officer are happy with the scale of extensions required and consider them modest in scale. The application received a number of objections from local residents and the parish council, and I seek to address those now. The density, we're in agreement with the case officer that the scale of the development is suitable for the application site. The proposed site shows that there's ample space to provide free dwellings, associated parking areas, private garden and private garden land, ensuring high quality residential amenity for future residents. The council are in agreement that the proposed housing mix is appropriate, providing a mixture of smaller and larger dwellings. The scheme has been designed in accordance with Northamptonshire's parking standards, and local highway authority have not objected to the application. In terms of traffic, the development is small scale and will have a limited impact on traffic movements. Again, the local highway authority have not raised any objections to the planning application. There is ample space within the application site for the storage of bins, and Northamptonshire's Waste Management, who were consulted, have stated they did not have any comments to make in regards to this development. Finally, in terms of drainage, this will be dealt with under one of the conditions, Condition 21, which will require a foul and surface water drainage scheme to be prepared and submitted to the application to the council prior to any works above slab level. I hope this will assist the committee with making a swift decision and granting the planning application. However, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of clarification? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the purposes of the debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution Rules 19.2 and 19. Sorry, can we just have... Sorry. Thank you, so I'll start again. For the purposes of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution Rules 19.2 and 19.21, I'll move the recommendation stated on page 96 and 114 of your agenda papers that planning permission is granted subject to conditions listed in paragraph 11 of the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carter, thank you. And I'll open the floor up for debate. Can I just ask Officer question? I thought you mentioned and talked about, and I think it's mentioned in the report, a turning circle. Can you just comment on that? Because that was picked up a couple of times.
There's a head, so there's a slight turning head to the northeast there. This is already an access that's in use. So vehicles could be coming in and out of here. I appreciate they're not necessarily at the moment, but as stated, this has been reviewed by the local highway authority and they didn't propose any objections. So
thank you. I'll open. Councillor Addison.
Thank you again, Chair. I don't quite understand the highways part. You know, the people that are living in the village, obviously understand the roads and the dangers that are there, but the comments from the highways, it doesn't seem to line up with what the actual residents are saying. And the other thing is I don't see anything here about drainage or the management of waste water in the report. I can't see anything from
drainage is dealt with under
I may have missed it, Chair.
7.9 into talks about condition required, but
okay.
So it is 7.9.3.
But
do you need to come back on some of that? Thank you.
With regards to the Highway Authority comments, they are the technical experts, the consultees in this area, and so we rely on their comments. And they did ask a couple of questions initially, just with regards to the use of the lane and whether or not that was used by agricultural vehicles. I think there was a slight confusion as to whether or not the application site was used by agricultural vehicles, but it wouldn't be, and it isn't and wouldn't be. And again, just based on policy, that there is no objection.
Councillor Shatlock.
Thanks, Chair. And I did have a meeting with some of the residents, so I've been through some of these things with them, and I did go back to the officer who gave me a very prompt and extensive reply, so thank you for that. They're still, obviously, they're very concerned about overdevelopment, so I just wondered what comments there were about that, and if I can give, the rest of it is, I still can't get my head around, this is a private road, and if it, as one of the speakers suggests, it's only 5 metres wide, 4 metres wide, where do we stand with that? Because there's a lot more houses down there than the usual 5. And they did mention about the west side encroaching. What is the position over that, please?
I think just referring to firstly the overdevelopment of the site. I mean, these 3 buildings are already there. Yes, they are adding some extensions, but the bulk of the floor space is already there. They're certainly not adding any new build development to this site, and that's why there's sufficient parking, there's amenity space, etc. That's why, in terms of policy, it wasn't considered to be overdevelopment. In terms of the private lane itself, I think the Highway Authority have issued some advice to the developer in their comments, just in terms of getting in touch with them as and when the application progresses, should it be granted planning permission. And sorry, what was the final point?
The parish council were talking about the west side of the development encroaching.
Do you mean the curtilage, the conflict in terms of heritage impacts?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this particular part of the site, I mean, just giving a bit of history to the application, The applicant engaged with Historic England and the local planning authority towards the beginning of this year, just about various buildings that they've got on the site. I looked at lots of different things when I went out there, and just to see how they could best conserve what's on the site and reuse what's on the site. Now, this particular site is enclosed. They're not looking to extend beyond the boundary wall that is already there. So Historic England were happy to rely on our conservation officer's comments for the proposal. They didn't object, and the conservation officer supports the proposal. There is a condition actually imposed on the decision from the archaeological officer with regards to a building record that would have to be completed before development was carried out, but there wouldn't be any harm caused to the actual estate itself. Thank you.
Can I ask a question about air source heat pumps? Because I think somebody did mention that, and that's always been a concern of mine regarding retrofitting and fitting those, because I think they are supposed to be quite noisy, aren't they? There's an informative. What sort of... Wait, can you sort of expand on that? Does that carry any weight at all?
The Environmental Protection team reviewed the application and they didn't object technically. I mean, that's the only advice that they would offer. In terms of North Northamptonshire, I think it's quite typical that they would apply that as an informative. And then if something were installed that were inappropriate, it would be for the team to pick up at a later date. But the guidance is there, and the developer has been informed of the guidance there, and that should be followed.
Are there any further comments from members? Councillor Jelly.
Yeah, thank you. I think on the concerns about the highway, in 7.73, which under highways, safety and parking, it says the applicant also has a duty of care with regard to the public right-of-way and must ensure that this is not obstructed and kept safe for users. So, is that one of the conditions? Or can we put that in as a condition?
So, are you referring to 7.71 policy?
That would
7.3.
7.73.
Yeah, that was included as a general comment from the Highway Authority. They didn't request that it be included as a condition. I've previously seen it included as informatives. It would be the duty of the developer to keep the public right-of-way free of any construction debris, construction traffic, etc.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Therefore, if there are no further comments from members, we have a proposer and seconder to grant the application. And if I just read that out, go back to, it's on page 96 of your report, that planning permission is granted subject to conditions listed in paragraph 11 of the report. And if we go to the vote, can I have all those in favour? Thank you. As unanimous, none against. Thank you. Thank you very much, and can I thank everyone for attending. There are no urgent items, and therefore